so critical on building up the cases, because every time, when I was doing a case review with somebody who has hundreds and hundreds of cases, and I said, do you know for the past 500 cases that you handled, what actually increased the value of the case other than just a basic traditional treatment? Was it that pain management treatment that you added to it? Or what caused to get injections or treatments or procedures? And how much did it increase when you did that, when you went from first epidural to the second epidural, from one procedure to the second procedure? How much did it all increase the value of the case? And the answer to all of that is I have no idea. I'd like to welcome everybody to this webinar. We're very excited to share with you some information and some knowledge about the AI role in the PI industry. My name is Hamid Kohan. I'm the president and CEO of LegalSoft, and I have McKay Farrell with us from Assembly NEOS. Hello, McKay.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So a little bit about myself. I've been president and CEO of LegalSoft since we created the company several years back. I spent 20 years in Silicon Valley working in high-tech industry. Then we brought back into the legal industry, worked for a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and now we work with over 1,000 law firms that we help and assist in a variety of different capacities. And also, McKay's been in this industry for a while, so a little bit about McKay.
Yep, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, so I've been a SaaS space for 20 plus years, heavily on the product management and business side, but really focusing on extremely complex problems. And a lot of it really has kind of been universal around driving efficiency, both in insurtech and legal tech. We and just in general, my teams take kind of a different approach to how we solve those problems. It's really user-centered design, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But we see a lot of similar patterns across organizations, especially as it relates to this conversation and AI, and a lot of things that we've kind of really been driven towards as tech industry for a long time are now starting to see its application in legal. So I'm really excited for this conversation. Thanks.
Absolutely. It's probably one of the best things that happened to me in the career-wise, because spending 20 years in tech, 20 plus years in tech, and then having a heavy emphasis in data management, data mining, decision support, data warehousing. And the only application we had in the past for all of that data collection analysis was sort of a commercial industry and information technologies, but not in law. So the two coming together has been great for me, because it's a great satisfaction of tying down, two half of the career part, the tech and the law, and just now they're marrying. It's almost like having your two best friends marrying each other. It's really good. So
that's right.
Very happy about that.
Yeah.
So the introduction of the AI in the law industry, we've been seeing an extreme amount of exposure and development and deployment of the AI in the legal industry. And it's a bit confusing, because it sort of popped out of nowhere, like the dot-coms did many years ago. They didn't know what is useful and what am I supposed to do with it. And it was very confusing what you can actually do on a dot-com site. It's the same exact thing, but a lot more extreme on the AI side. And how does it apply to law industry, and more particularly personal injury industry? One of the first places that it is effective is automating a lot of processes, because a lot of work within the legal industry, especially personal injury, has to do with data. Anything from the intake process, from the client generation. And there was never really a place where you could rely on data to this extent to be able to set up or scale your law practice. So it started with automation, by understanding the data to be able to set up a more effective automations, because automation is data oriented, but a lot of data for the automation was sort of came from experience and sort of do it and fail and do it and succeed and so forth. So the AI is going to play a big role on the automation, everything from your CRM to your workflow process within the law firm. What happens when the client actually gets retained, all the way throughout the organization when the case is settled. And the information that you collect it also helped with the efficiency of the process because now you can, using the AI, and analyze things like what is exact cost of client acquisition for the firm, using all lead sources that you use. Doesn't matter, is a call to action, is a call transfer, is intake forms, is it a social media, whatever it is. So it creates a big efficiency in the process when you know the exact data. Like some of the things I've always been asking for past 7-8 years from the law firms that I was consulting with is that what's your cost of acquisition? I don't know. What's the duration from beginning to the end for your pre-lead cases? Like it should be 4 to 6 months on the pre-lead minimum policies and so forth. Well, they don't know. What's on your litigation? What is that? All of that stuff was not able to be answered for you to make your process more efficient and more productive when you know exact data. AI can help you do all of that. And now the innovation part is like when we started this AI projects, our focus, because of some other competition in the market, was demand writing. So there was several companies like Even Up jumped up on. So the innovation was, how do I use AI specifically for creating personal injury demands? Well, that's just now one part of the process, the demand writing, which LegalSoft also plays a role in that. When that came up, we basically said, okay, it's not just the demand. Demand is actually in the middle of the process. We do the intake, then we do the casework, building up the case, and then collect all the medical record, analyze it, summarize it, and then we go to demand. Somehow that innovation within this industry happened to develop the middle part, not the beginning, not the end, right in the middle, which is the demand. So in LegalSoft, we made a change into that. We have something this mind is saying that, PI.ai sort of a situation where we're developing AI technology to be able to do better targeting of client acquisition from the beginning. So you don't do sort of try things out. You know exactly who your demographic is, depending on your practice type and the state and the local that you're at, to be able to do better targeting. Number one. Then the second thing is do an AI intake, which is look like somebody on the screen that speaks 100+ languages, who actually speaks with you and does the intake and escalates it if required. So if you get that catastrophic cases, you can actually escalate it to the attorney to actually take over the conversation and talk to. But you're talking to the AI, who is basically going to ask every question in multiple languages in a perfect manner and a sequence to make sure you don't miss a single intake. And then you go into case management, which is a lot of treatment, a lot of managing the treatments, the scheduling it, reminding it, make sure they don't go to too many or too little, and people who refer clients to each other. So that's the case management. And now you come to now collecting the medical records, which the AI knows every single treatment that you have gone to, and knows who the doctors are, knows what kind of a records need to be collected, collecting medical records, running it through the scanning system where it scans every single medical record, summarizes it, and gives you all the costs and injuries, current injuries and future injuries. And then now you go to demand, where you feed all of that stuff into a system, and now it spits out the demand. You can literally, my vision on this was have two buttons on my screen. One button generate a client, the second button generate a demand and get a check. So it was sort of like automating the entire process. And we are working on that to developing the entire process from client generation all the way to the demand. And the path of the demand is the lien reductions. This is pretty standard formula for everybody who worked on the case to get sort of reduction and get paid out. And then do the disbursement letter, basically. So our intention in LegalSoft to have the A to Z of that process and have the milestones and so forth within them. Now, having been able to integrate all of this is a big task. And it's not like you just go select the software to buy. It's the entire process, has a lot of learning for the machines to do. And right now, we are having a combination of, we are still in the previous revolution, which is basically going from local staff to virtual staff. So we work with 1,000 law firms who have switched or expanded from local staff to virtual legal staff from global, 8 different countries that we have offices in. So now our job within the LegalSoft is not only creating the platform, creating the AI, also training and enabling our virtual staff to utilize that. So the first phase is get your virtual staff that are much more available, grateful to have a job, lower cost. And in the second phase is to equip them and train them within the AI platform so they are not even more effective and cost less because their productivity probably 4 or 5x's by being trained on using AI platforms that is available out there. So I touched on the virtual legal staffing and the marketing that we do at LegalSoft. Essentially, we provide, this was one first part of scaling a law firm. How do you scale my law firm? When I was consulting a lot of different firms, number one challenge was I can't find the right people. Then I can't keep them. Then I can't afford them. Or all of the above. And then COVID happened. Now I can't even bring them to the office to do all of that with. So now the problem got basically 3x when this happened. So we basically said, why am I stuck on the local resources? And when COVID happened, obviously did a proof of point with this, where I said, if I learn to work with my staff, if they're not sitting in front of me, it really doesn't matter where they sit anymore, because if they're 5 miles down the road, 1 mile or 10,000 miles, doesn't make any difference. They're not in my office. So I got to learn how to work with that. And that's what the virtual staffing took off, because now you try one, you try second, and then is it scalable, is flexible, is inexpensive, and you have no employee relationship and responsibility. We recruit them, we train them, we deploy them, we coach them throughout the year, and we continuously train them, which I haven't seen a law firm that has a continuous training program for their staff. But we do have that, and you have no basic responsibility or liability because you're dealing with LegalSoft, and you can add or remove any of your staff on demand. So we went to the scalability for that. Anything from intake to case management to medical record retrievals, medical record summaries, demand writers. We even now do paralegals and remote attorneys. When I say remote attorneys, that triggered a bunch of things, because it said, what do you mean? They're not really attorneys, they're not licensed, they can't sign documents or whatever. I said, yeah, remote attorneys, what it means is that in all these global countries, there are law schools that they go to, not just like US, they finish law school, they start practicing, they are really attorneys. So they work for the attorneys here under their supervision, which they do everything except signing things or representing clients, basically. So it would be a high-level paralegal. And we didn't know if it's going to work or not. And now that's one position we are very difficult to even keep enough inventory of, because everybody wants one remote attorney that you can get for less than like $3,500 a month full time. So it revolutionized all of that. But now we have a new challenge, which I mentioned in the previous presentation. It was like, first, fix the availability of resources, reduce the liability and cost, increase efficiency, then plug in the AI into it. You plug in the AI to it, now you can go sky high with it, because now you basically checked all the boxes. And that's the vision of what the LegalSoft does on the staffing. On the marketing, same thing. You can outsource the entire marketing organization, which would consist of like 4 or 5 internal staff. That would cost anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 a month on the salary staff. Now, it would include all of the above. Online presence. The online presence was simple. You have a website, you have online presence. Now, you have your website, 6 or 7, 8 different platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and God knows what next. So now I have to have presence in all of these places. I have to have my own social media on all of these. Then I need to have client retention program. I need to do email campaigns. I need to do newsletters, mobile apps, view collection, testimonial collection. Is a huge list. And it will cost tens of thousands of dollars a month to have an internal team to do that. You can outsource that entire thing to LegalSoft for less than $5,000 a month to do all of that. So you get a team of like 10 people working on your online presence, and you can even start with $2,000. The reason we can afford to do that in a high quality level, because automation, efficiency, and AI, because we utilize all of that to be able to do all of these services for our clients. So you're no longer saying, oh, I can't afford to build an internal marketing organization. And otherwise, I got to work with another 10 companies. Somebody does my website and SEO. The other one does my social media. The other one does my client retention. And after the third outside contractor, you're sort of done because it's not even manageable or scalable. So you're just like, okay, I'm just going to stop here. I'm not going to do anything more. So this was the LegalSoft perspective of handling the law firm operation from staffing to marketing to expansion to growth, client retention. The client retention I want to emphasize on, because this is one thing that's been on my soapbox, is that every attorney I work with and talk to always worried about getting the next new client. But they completely forget about all these clients that they served over the years because they assume they're all going to come back to them and refer their friends and family and colleagues, which is not happening. I always said, when somebody want to come to you, they get hijacked like 10 times before they get to you with all the social media, billboards, radios, TVs, everything else. So before they get to you, they already been talked to 5 other law firms. So you have to put a big value on the asset of the law firm, which is your previous clients, that you need to come back and bring friends and families with them. We have a very automated structure and the system in our marketing organizations to get all of that in-house and get client retention program and referral program added to your law firm. So having said that, you need to have a case management software because it can do that for you to be able to do all of this, because now we basically brought the clients, we brought them back, we managed their data and so forth. Now you have a case. Now you need a case management software to be able to actually handle the case. And that's where Neo Assembly comes in. It's like, okay, LegalSoft, thank you, we got it. Now we take it from here. We're moving it to the next. Now we're taking it to the end so the law firm can actually stay in business. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to McKay.
Thanks, Hamid. One of the things that I find really interesting about your talk that you were talking about there, especially as it relates to AI and staffing, whether it's the firm's internal staff or outsourcing with you or finding alternatives, is that when we're talking about AI, we're not talking about replacing staff, right? Like there's always going to be a human in the loop. There needs to be a checkpoint. And so, all these innovations are coming out and you're reading all this news about, it's going to be replacing jobs. It's not. AI is about augmenting and improving productivity and efficiency, as Hamid mentioned. I mean, this comes from a technology standpoint and also a practicality standpoint. Like we've seen this, we know this. And really, that's the way that we're approaching AI as it comes to assembly. And I think you're going to see the really smart people are doing this as an industry, as Hamid mentioned what they're doing as well. It's about how I can augment workflows, how I can bake in things that my firm already does to improve either the information that I'm receiving or my productivity, or I'm identifying areas where I can just be faster, or I can automate portions of the demand. We know the demand needs to actually have people to go through and review it and do all the additional due diligence. But that piece of drafting sometimes can come from other areas. And as you mentioned, even up kind of led the charge there and everybody reacted to that. And then we all kind of took a step back and said, what are we really trying to do here with AI? How are we going to really improve the lives of our customers and the legal tech industry as a whole? So completely fascinating. I mean, I love hearing you talk. This is not the first one we've done. It all gets back to data too, right? Like that was a key point. So I'm going to do a quick overview of NEOS. It's assembly software. That's who I represent, who I work for. But really what NEOS is a fully featured, highly customizable, configurable, and scalable legal case management platform. We manage the entire lifecycle of case, from intake through case management, including configurable task management, communication tools, document management, calendaring, everything under sun, all the way through billing, management, time tracking. and ultimately culminating in advanced reporting and tools. Hamid and I did a webinar recently on the importance of analytics and the way that you're looking at reporting and dashboards and defining KPIs. That's a big thing that we focus on, and this will tie back to AI. So that's really what what NEOS is and does. It's an advanced case management, and when I say platform, I mean platform. We have multiple integration tools, and we look at how we can scale. A lot of that's driven through usability. As I mentioned before, we take a user-centered design approach that's really about the actual function. It's called is user experience or UX, but we do that because we are making decisions that are really rooted in customer input and feedback, and we have many different ways that we elicit that, evaluate that, and then work closely with customers and even some non-customers to identify what really problems they're facing and how we can solve it in a meaningful way. And we also have an agile methodology from a development perspective that allows us to iterate, test, and rapidly deploy new features. And we're talking about AI. That's something that we've done heavily and been in a beta program for about 7-8 months, where we continue to evolve and get feedback and tweak our models so we can provide the optimal outputs for that. And I'm going to touch on innovation. Combining those two methodologies are really what allow us to be able to innovate quickly and build solutions that matter for our customers. And it's obviously what we're talking about today. It's a big area we've been focusing on, and that's AI. And so our approach, as I mentioned, is we're not trying to build tools that are going to replace paralegals, lawyers, or case managers, or even intake staff. That's different from outsourcing that, because those things are still needed. But what we're doing is looking at augmenting it. As I mentioned, we spent about hundreds of hours working directly with individual users and going through a beta program where we currently have 60 plus firms on it now. And the only limitation is how much time we've had to spend with them. And we gate that to make sure that we're getting the right information back to us so we can make the right decisions. But one of the unanimous feedback that we heard from all of our firms, all the feedback participants, was make me more efficient, streamline, right? Wherever you think AI can be applied, that's what I'm going to care about. So we started the conversation saying, how can AI help you? And what we found was a lot of firms were saying, I don't know where it can help me. You tell me. And so then we started workshopping things. And as we kept getting more deep into it, it really became about where can you make me or help me work faster? And as we dove into that, we started looking at very specific workflows within our customer base. And document generation, not demand letters, document generation was one of those things where if we can shave off an hour to 2 hours just creating a document, even just a draft document for firms, then we're in a good place. And I'm not talking about general document assembly, because most everybody does that. I'm talking about writing new sections of content based off of data that exists within a content management system, which is where most of your data does exist for different scenarios. And doing something useful with it, being able to pick sections of content, not just a single piece or a field of content, and actually doing something useful with it. The second area that we heard, which ultimately became surprising to us, but it was really one of the biggest time savers that we heard, was data entry. And it for everybody here is like, well, that's probably saying, well, dummy, that's not obvious. But when we're looking at AI, a lot of times we're looking at these whiz bang things. But we resoundingly heard, help me reduce the amount of data that I have to entry. So one of the unique things that we've done is build in ways to extract information. And currently we're working on medical records extraction. But part of that is extracting useful information that can be summarized and brought back to you, so you don't have to spend so much time actually reading through things. And again, human in the loop is important. And whether it's you or your paralegal or some other staff that is going through and summarizing that as well, we want to take that all out. We want to be able to make that faster so you can focus on things that really move the needle, really diving into the key details and being strategic about how you work a case. And the real world benefits, I mean, they're just that, right? It's efficiency, client service, and outcome improvement. And by that, I'm going back to what Hamid said about data and what we were talking about from extracting data. By extracting data, well, first analyzing the data, taking a document, pulling key information, key value pairs, and putting it in the system. We not only have a summary, but then now we have raw data, and we have that raw data. So now it's actually stored in system and can be reported on later. And that's a big change as it relates to AI, because before you didn't have time to do all this data entry, or maybe some of the firms do that are on here, but it's very expensive as well, right? Like there's a lot of hours that go into that. So a lot of firms just won't do that. They push that off to the side and they say, we'll come back to it later, or, as it go forward, we'll do it. And then it doesn't really happen. AI is going to allow you to actually do that, to get more of the data that matters into your system, to where you can really do that correlation and causation analysis where you couldn't do that before, right? Like there's a huge and a ton of value in being able to say, I want to look for these specific cases and I want to see how many or total value of the case and what it either settled for, or other conditions that I might want to be looking for that were outliers that you didn't know of, that now AI, you can go do that with, and you can use specifically large language models that helped kind of pioneer or usher us into this new era of AI. You can simply ask questions against the data that you didn't realize or even think about associating data sets to before. So when we're talking about where AI is going and the real world benefits for personal injury lawyers, this is it, right? It's extracting data, doing something useful with the data, and ultimately streamlining back to your practice.
Sure. Comment on this, because it is so critical on building up the cases. Because every time, when I was doing a case review with somebody who has hundreds and hundreds of cases, and I said, do you know for the past 500 cases that you handled, what actually increased the value of the case other than just a basic traditional treatment? Was it that pain management treatment that you added to it? Or what caused to get injections or treatments or procedures? And how much does it increase when you did that, when you went from first epidural to the second epidural, from one procedure to the second procedure? How much did it all increase the value of the case? And the answer to all of that is I have no idea, but I think, or I guess, that it was the second epidural that actually, broke the case to the six-figure, or it was that pain management opinion or treatment that was needed. But with having that data within your case management software, where you can run a report and use AI against it, the AI is going to answer all of those single questions I ask sort of almost perfectly. So you know what you need to do next. So that was a big add-on value when you're using your case management software, not to just track things, but collect information and analyze the information to increase your value of the cases for your clients and get what is really fair and just, and you haven't missed anything within that process.
Yeah, and that's huge. And we talk about AI and we go back to data. We see this, and we've heard this from our firms, not directed at technology sense, but just as a view of AI, it is tightly connected with data, large data sets, or at least usable data sets. But all that comes from extracting and having it available, right? Like, so we should be looking at those two things together, AI and analytics and reporting, as something that will really have a massive impact on law firms. So just, using a large language model to analyze the documents, one thing, but actually doing something with the data is another. And that's where we really see this having a huge impact.
And something we just experiment with this in, which is very interesting, is going to your software type of a system that has all the medical records and all the medical bills and so forth, which you would typically give it to a case manager, paralegal, to analyze it, read it, summarize it, and pass it on to somebody else who's going to write the demand based on those findings. And often they miss stuff with those medical records, because sometimes, especially if the case is litigation case, is a lot of information for somebody to analyze, from MRIs to X-rays to lab tests to treatment results, current injuries, future injuries, loss of income, all that stuff that happens from the medical records. Now we're developing a system that you feed all of that raw data into it that comes from a system like yours that has been collected at. So, and then the AI is basically compares that and uses tens of thousands of other cases similar to this and other medical records similar to this to tell you exactly what it is, what's the impact, what's the injuries, what should be the compensation. So you take that and plug it into the demand. But if you have to have systems like Assembly NEOS to collect those information, because some cases take 2-3 years. So you're collecting a lot of data in this case that is not typically utilized unless you apply it into AI and then use that data, compare it with tens of thousands of other cases to get the best outcome.
Yeah, agreed. And one more thing about that approach, when we're talking about NEOS specifically, is as we're looking at AI, a lot of what we do is say, where can we improve workflows with AI? Not take away, not necessarily even build new ones, but build workflows, build AI to workflows that already exist to make it easy for your users to just implement some of these extractions. As an example, to be able to do that with low impact and actually make your firm faster, so you actually have some artifacts that are useful as it applies to AI as it go forward. Because AI tie into the future value of it, a lot of that is going to be the data that is extracted and the things that it can do for you. But also from a practical workflow perspective, there's a numerous areas and other innovations that are still coming that we see as beneficial, that we're ultimately peppering into our platform because of all the things Hamid just mentioned.
Right. So some of those things is that predictive analysis that is done to predict the outcome of the cases or outcome of the next treatment. Data mining, basically what that means is that you mine all this data that you have collected over the years, over so many different variety of cases and types and injuries, and then help you have a strategy going forward, building up a case. So again, all of that comes from the information that is collected. First of all the previously collected data from years ago, combined with the collection of data that Assembly NEOS has in the system, to not only use and analyze that, but also create a strategy moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And so some of the other things that we find really interesting there too, and I completely agree, strategy formulation, is that this is definitely future state. But when we look at how you can strategize from a business process perspective, you can actually drive change. We can get suggested workflow improvements. For example, we have something called checklist in NEO, which is really automated task management that you can predefine. Future state, when we're looking at not just NEOS, but as an industry as a whole, you start bringing in some of these advanced concepts around how can I be more efficient with my workflows and or my task management to begin with, cut out steps, have automated notifications that we've learned over time, because you're having a better outcome from one series of cases versus another. You can actually analyze those conditions and say, all right, here's where you actually need to improve. And so some of that strategy formulation even comes from the AI itself. So there's a lot here when we say prediction. It's not necessarily even just in did this client have his airbag deployed, or did they have some sort of traumatic head injury that's going to drive the value of the case. But there's other things that can be applied back to business process related to AI that haven't even really been touched on at this point, which is pretty exciting.
Right. Absolutely. And this is going to heavily influence the personal injury going forward, because those people who are equipped and are tracked to implement and monitor and learn about the process automation, document collections, using the AI for intake, using AI for case evaluations, and building and growing a law practice in all aspects of it, is AI is going to influence that greatly, especially in personal injury, because it's very, very competitive in every state. And it's also that has a huge upside. People who are in a personal injury are not there for minimum policies. They're in there to make those big cases bigger. So you want to go from $600,000 case to $0.2 million case, and that you need this kind of efficiency, tracking, monitoring, and evaluation based on previous cases, utilizing AI and utilizing automation system and tracking system like NEOS to be able to do this. So you can stay ahead of everybody else, because you're also dealing with the firms who have very, very deep pockets. So they're going to, the tougher this gets, the more money they're going to spend getting the clients, and more money they spend, it makes it tougher for you to compete. So I've seen people around me from the firms who were spending $100K a month on client generation. Now they're spending $250, and they could go to $1 million a month on just one estate to generate clients. And that is going to be a disadvantage for everybody else who trying to compete with those law firms.
Yeah, I agree. So much spend happens there, and there are challenges with that. But when you start looking at what AI will do, specifically in regards to customization, automation, there's a ton of tools that are available, specifically in NEOS, that will not only help drive that, so you can set that up, but there's ways to automate some of those marketing communications or responses to firms. And when you start layering AI, you can really tailor messages based off of previous history. You can analyze the contents of an email and do various things where you can get more of your personal tone in some of those automations. Whereas before you might have said, I prefer to handle all those conversations live, and by me, it could be anybody within your firm. As we see the expansion of the large language models and AI, kind of the massive evolution, I guess, or rapid evolution, I should say, we're going to get a lot more in terms of responding, auto responses and automations to communications that feel more real instead of just a standard chatbot or some other canned message. So we're going to see evolution in that. It's just how we communicate with our clients drastically over the next year or 2 years. We're pretty excited about that as well.
Absolutely, and that's everybody's seen in the media. The ethics is an issue with the AI. I'm sure there's going to be some restrictions and some regulations and so forth coming up. I think everybody's busy and surprised by everything that's coming out of the AI. But I'm predicting that there will be restrictions and regulations about where you can use it, how you can use it, against who you can use it. So all that stuff is going to come up. But some of the very basic is that, like McKay mentioned, that this is not to replace people per se. So it's like that case in New York. It's like, basically the attorney went to the court with the AI, and he's pretty clear he can't do that. So being able to use AI, be transparent what you're using it for, it needs to be supervised, managed with licensed attorneys. If you're using it for legal proceedings, if you're using it for demand writings, if you're using it for, case generations or discoveries, you need to be able to use it properly. Is a way to do things better, faster, but it's not for just doing everything. So you have to be supervised managing it and be accountable for what the outcome of it is. It's just is a resource to the attorney and the law firm to do things better, faster. But not unleashing it to just do the whole thing. Regulations, we talk about data security. We'll talk about that, the data security, not only from the basics of the case information. I know Assembly NEOS has a lot of data protection and security within their platform to make sure the access are restricted, access are required, and the verifications are required. So you have to take a look at all that privacy, data security, and regulations. But again, this should not prevent you to get into it or use it as an excuse that, look, so-and-so guy got caught using AI, gone too far with it, or too little for it, or wrong direction. It doesn't mean everything has good and bad and has its risk. But you just need to be aware of what you can do with it and where you can use and where you can apply it to your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could actually answer a question that was dropped in chat too, be that's related. One, we're Assembly SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, which is you go look it up, but it's a heightened level of security that we've been essentially certified for kind of this highest tier. There's a number of other secure methodologies that we follow, even just from multi-factor authentication, and we sit on Azure Cloud and a number of other things. But as it relates to how AI is really deployed and utilized within firms, just like us, you should not be using Chat GPT for anything that's sensitive, right? You should always look and try to understand how your data is being used. And on the NEO side, we don't share that data back with any providers. It's or any other firms. It's compartmentalized. Any AI, anything that we do that's related to your firm stays within your firm. There's no shared models that get pushed and pulled and learning. It's essentially at your firm. And I think the real takeaway is whether you are on NEOS or choose NEOS or go to any other provider, you need to make sure that data is not being shared out, that there's no additional learnings without your full consent.
Right. Absolutely. You want me to start with this one, McKay, about the
Please.
education?
Yes, please.
So education, there's definitely tons of it out there. There is so much content going on right now, from YouTube to podcasts to books and conferences. Everybody's talking about AI. Don't get burned out. Don't get discouraged. You need to get involved sooner or later. It's better to do sooner, so you actually, it's almost like starting a school all over again. You got to take those freshman classes and then advance to the senior classes. But find a way to, whatever way works for you. If it's online, if it's in books, if it's in seminars or conferences, start doing that and start adopting to some portion of it. It doesn't need to start big and seeing the whole vision that I mentioned about client acquisition all the way to settlements, but you can start somewhere, use some of it for something. If it is just research, if it is just the intake, it's just data analysis, whatever it is, to do that and start adopting it for the firm. Don't be shy, don't wait, you're going to fall behind. This train is moving so fast. If you don't get to that, at least get to the station so you can catch one of the trains. So get in there and try to get into one of those. That's adoption. A skill development is that they don't take AI at face value, because there's a lot of what we call in the tech industry wraps. So you have ChatGPT in the back end, and there is now hundreds of sort of a user interface, what we call wraps, that basically handles you to use ChatGPT, guides you, handles you, helps you, all of the above. So get in there and actually see what it really does versus what it claims, and see how useful is that to your practice and your needs. And again, don't look at the face value. It's almost like all of those .coms that popped up, in early 2000. And I don't know, 80% of them was useless, 20% of them were extremely useful. So you got to screen through that and start implementing it with the knowledge, with the experience, so you learn how to implement AI in the practice. We can help you, others can help you, but sort of for most parts right now, don't try this at home alone. You need some guidance and help for to do that. And have that the strategy I just mentioned about beginning to the end strategy. So you're not just taking AI and plugging it right in the middle of your process, and might mess up other things if you do that. And changing the management mentality and the staff mentality, especially a lot of the law firms, especially the older law firms. I always said when I started this law practice with my with my tech background, I came into the firms and I said, "Oh my God, you guys are like 40 years behind technology." I made comments in my book about if you leave the attorneys alone, they're still wearing their pages, waiting on the fax machine to the fax to come in. So somebody needs to help them and destroy the fax machine and get the pages away from them. So you need to be in that open-minded state to be able to make the changes happen. Innovation is going to continue very, very rapidly. So that's why they say getting on that train, because the next train is going to be much nicer train, faster train, and probably a lot more features in it. And get your competitive advantage. This is the opportunity for the law firms to get that competitive advantage, because there's a lot of firms going to fall behind on this segment. So this is the way for you to inexpensive way get a competitive advantage, because on the financial side, it's very difficult to get a competitive advantage when somebody right next in your own building is spending $250,000 a month generating clients. You can't compete. This is one leverage you have that is very inexpensive to be able to get ahead of that firm whose focus is just ad spend to efficiency, productivity, and AI. So this is the opportunity for you.
Yeah, and one thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing, Hamid, that stood out to me at the very beginning when you started talking, at the very beginning of the presentation, was as you were talking about the platform and the AI, how you're utilizing it, but also that you trained your staff, that all the staff that could be outsourced, that you got them up and running and educated on AI early. I think you really hit that point here, but I just kind of want to second that the way to actually get up to speed is go play with it. go find some ways to really get wise about what AI can do for you and how you can flex with it and how you can start implementing it. Hamid has already done that. That's one of the first things he did with his staff, as he mentioned, get them up and operating with it, because this doesn't go anywhere. It's just going to grow. And if you jump on it now's the time to jump on it, because you can learn and evolve instead of waiting 2 years down the line when it's evolved even further and there's even more tools to go and learn. This is a tool. It's not meant to replace. And it's like anything else that is in your bag of tricks. It's something that you need to get
Exactly.
wise on quick.
I'll give you two practical things that happened to myself. I have a social media team in LegalSoft that manages about 130, 150 law firm social medias specifically. And it's a growing area, and it's a growing area in our segment too. And I basically told them that they need to go reduce 30% of the staff time by implementing AI technology in there. Otherwise, I'm not letting them add any more human resources unless they achieve that. So they need to increase the productivity of existing team by 30% using an AI platform, or I'm not approving any new hires. So now they have that mandate, because it was so easy to just say, I need 2 more graphic designers, I need 1 more video editor, I need 3 more content creators. I'm like, go use AI. And once you fully use AI, I allow more increases in headcount. But until then, no, we're not doing that. The secondary example I was going to say, I have 4 sons, 2 of them are in law school, 1 in Vanderbilt, 1 in Pepperdine, and I'm putting them on this thing, the same thing. I ask them, how much they teaching you in law school about AI? Not much. I'm like, okay, now is a requirement. I need you every month. I'm going to assign you an AI platform, and I need you to come back and tell me what the heck does this thing does for the legal industry. So now I'm putting them sort of on my own course path and say, now I'm going to force you to learn AI above and beyond what they're teaching into law school, because when you come out, you're going to be right in the middle of it. So you better know more than your peers.
Yeah, spot on.
So we talked about a lot of different things, a lot of exposure. I hope people took notes, because this is just like a recipe and a to-do list. And I hope people don't put it on the back burner until it happens to them. So we open it up for questions and see how we can answer some of these questions. So you can put the questions in the chat box, anything about question you have about the entire presentation, or any other things you have in mind. The question is, what are the top 3 steps you recommend? One is to educate yourself, like we said, get involved. Look at these offerings that everybody has, talks about AI. If your question is regarding AI, and then try one of them out and evaluate the result. Don't get discouraged, but don't get excited either, because there's a lot more around it. But that's the first level of involvement. I say, do these 3 things to get involved. That's the first thing. But if you're talking about the law practice in general, is you need to be able to answer the questions I just asked. What's your cost of client acquisition? What's a journey for the pre-lit from retainment to settlements on pre-litigation? What is your strategy about number of cases per case manager on pre-lit, and then how many is for the lit? What's your average fees collected on pre-lit over the past 2 years versus lit? All of those questions. How long does it take you to put out the demand? What's your average demand? What's your average offer, and what's the variance? You need to have all of these questions, either doing it through a systems like, assembly NEOS from the data, analyze it and do data analysis, or some other way, but you need to answer those questions. So those are the top recommended things that I have in mind.
Yep.
Go ahead, McKay.
I was going to say you're spot on. I'll go take it back to our last webinar, and that was understand what you're trying to measure and what you're trying to do, and then you will likely find a good use for AI to improve productivity around those. So I think you're spot on, but it really starts with, what's your goal for each of those things, define it, measure it, and then test it. That's the best way to approach it. I do see a question from Brett. For a practice with 500 cases, does NEOS use AI to ease the headache transition from one case management software to NEOS? We have firms that have had 25 years of cases, thousands and thousands of cases that we've successfully migrated over to NEOS, and we've done this hundreds and hundreds of times. We don't use AI for that. We actually have a very, very talented and complex set of tools that we've built over time. But we have some secret sauce in there, so I won't share that. But I would recommend reaching out and talking to one of our sales folks or even our professional services folks. We are hands down the best in the industry at converting data and migrating. We're very proud of that fact. So I could confidently say with 500 cases, you would be in good hands.
Myself asked questions and what are the leading companies in this industry for AI. Nobody has really panned out per se. Even Up is the only one that sort of successfully implemented the demand writing. But what the weaknesses that we saw on that was that what the cost was a bit high, and it only handles certain kind of demands. And that's what we're trying to improve in LegalSoft demand writing services via the AI, because we have right now more human interface for reviews and making it perfect as possible, versus Even Up, which does it more automated AI, but we are sort of using AI for generating it and real PI experienced folks reviewing it and making it better. I mentioned about Harvey. Harvey is the most funded AI startup. Yes, they are, because they're sort of a Silicon Valley backing. But what Harvey is trying to produce is, we are doing the same thing. Funny enough, because I come from the same neighborhood, is they're trying to eliminate attorneys for transactional law. So this is, for example, the things that doesn't really need a lot of lawyering, which is immigration, bankruptcy, estate planning, uncontested divorces for family law. These are the stuff that is a collection of document collection, filling a bunch of application and just submitting it somewhere. And that's what Harvey's trying to do, to basically do an AI attorney. But this is mainly for transaction, not litigation, not much of a PI. So I wouldn't worry about the Harvey, which hasn't been launched per se. The other question anonymously was, which AI app do you recommend for content creation and video production? We do have a list. Unfortunately, since I'm not directly involved with that, we have a team of, like I mentioned, about 20 people who do that. And if you reach out to us directly, we can definitely give you those list of folks. But the first thing I will say is try the LegalSoft services before you start doing this on your own, because I think it's going to be a lot more cost effective for us to be able to do that for you.
I like the next one for are there large language models we suggest when trying to build internal tools for legal CRM, Chat GPT versus Claude, or Claude versus, or for CRM plugin automation that can analyze and summarize data. So you'll need to be careful with Chat GPT. If there's anything sensitive, there's a high likelihood it could get exposed. There are some other tools out there. They're somewhat expensive. OpenAI comes to mind, which is kind of the background of Chat GPT. But more so than anything, I would recommend talking to us at NEOS, because we do that. Not necessarily from a plugin perspective, but a lot of what we do is built into our case management platform, and a lot of that comes in the form of excuse me, automations, and there's quite a bit that are related to direct customer interactions and firing off those things at certain intervals, those communications. But we also, it's kind of what I mentioned, we do a lot of summary based off of data. That, of course, is my recommend, because I'm here to do that. But realistically, you got to do due diligence on how data is being used. And so aside from, I don't know Claude well, I would say though, avoid Chat GPT is the real recommendation there.
Right. So for those of you, I'm still taking questions. For those of you who want to book a demonstration with NEOS, please scan on your screen and you can book a demonstration with NEOS, so they can explain much more in detail about implementation, functions, features, and conversions from other platforms into the NEOS. I'll give a few minutes for people to scan that. And also, if you want to talk to LegalSoft, we actually, for the folks who attended this session, we were offering $1,000 off your first experience VA full-time with LegalSoft. So if you contact us, we also be able to just mention this this conversation we had here, and I'm sure they will be able to offer you your incentive to showing up on this webinar.
Awesome. We do have one more question. You should absolutely do that. We're big fans of LegalSoft, by the way. So the last one that we have here is, can NEOS build tools for other legal CRMs? I would almost flip that on its head. NEOS is a very robust platform. We have an open AI. We already have multiple integrations. If you have kind of one of the big CRMs, or it's well known, we might already integrate. But we also provide guidance assistance for people who want to do those types of integrations. So what we see is really NEOS, because it's case management platform, there's a lot more that we do within NEOS, but what we see is that really becomes the source or the system of record for many things. And because of our architecture and open nature of our API, there's lots of ways to build those type of integrations and tools, and really leverage kind of some of the power of NEOS as well.
Great. Any other questions? Let me go back for folks who want to see the booking of a demo with the NEOS again. So if you guys, for those again on the AI side, if the folks, they contact us at LegalSoft, we have, I've written a couple of books. One of them is fully dedicated to how the AI impacts the law firm. We'll be happy to send you a free copy of the book. If you just contact us, we'll be shipping that out to you. There's one about practice tune-up, and there's another one about how to scale a law firm. So just let us know. We're happy to send you those books too. I think one of the questions for you, McKay, is that how does NEOS works with Clio?
NEOS does not work with Clio. So where Clio is more of a generalist case management platform, we are also a case management platform, but we are heavily focused on PI, and we do a lot on the insurance defense side as well. So I would say we're Clio on steroids.
Great. I'd like to thank everybody who joined us. I hope this was informative for you. And again, reach out to us. It doesn't need to hire us or work with us or anything like that. We'd love to. We're very deep into this industry, working with a lot of attorneys. We work for over 1,000 law firms on a daily basis. We have about 2,000 of our agents deployed into these law firms that they're working full-time for the firm. So we have all that data. We'll be happy to share that with you. And we are partnered with NEOS, so we work together. And I think the combination makes it even a stronger solution for your law practice. So again, happy to help in any way we can. And McKay, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's always my pleasure, Hamid.